I want to start out by saying Esther's laugh is completely contagious and joyful. So
she practices it a lot. She hangs around. She hangs around with a bunch of laughers.
Well, I'm glad I got to be part of that group.
Yeah,
a part of this group. Thank you all.
Yes.
Communication. So you talk about the emotional scale, and emotions are our guides.
Breathe deeply and give us a little more volume for that.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So you talk about the communication with my inner being, which is what I'm after, that kind of sense of companionship that you can tap into at any time.
Yes,
and
because it's always flowing. It's like a signal that when you tune to it, it's always there for you. Never not there. But sometimes you're tuned so you can't quite hook up with it.
And I understand that because I've been following you. I guess it's just, I'd like to know how to get to a clearer place with that. I'll give you an example.
Well, you want to get rid of the static because it's only the static that's in your. In other words, if you're a tuner, if you've got a lot of static going on, you may not be able to hear it. And so, quiet in your mind will clear it, and then you'll hear it.
So when it's a negative emotion, I know there's static.
Yeah.
But in January, I had my only bout with COVID, and it's funny because I woke up with a sore throat, and I thought, I follow Abraham. I know that this is not COVID. And I'm actually going to take a test.
I follow Abraham and I have COVID and it's okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wasn't worried.
But what we're saying is, when you say, I don't have this thing that I think I have, or in other words, don't try to put a happy face sticker on the empty gas gauge.
The thing that bothered me was that I had this knowing. Like I really had
What was the knowing?
That it's just a sore throat. It's not COVID. I even took
what difference does it make what it is? That's the thing. In other words, everything that we just said was in preparation for this conversation. Because it's that precise pointing at where I am that's not where I want to be that causes the static so that you can't receive the clear signal from your inner being. Your inner being is not only offering you clarity, offering signals to every cell of your body, trillions of cells of your body. And so there's the resources that are flowing to you are indescribable. So much to know about that. And so the less fixated you are on labeling your disadvantage, no matter what it is, then the more you're out of the way of the cells of your body to be the receivers of the signal. Your cells are in constant communication with Source, transmitting requests and receiving the answers. In other words, you have this trillions of communicators that are advocating for you and knowing their part in your balance and always asking for whatever, and your inner being, source energy, is always supplying them with the precise signal. But if you've just been diagnosed with something, or if you are self-diagnosing, or if you're trying to call it a cold when it is COVID because you don't want it to be COVID for whatever reason, in other words, then you're in the way, and it slows down the recovery process, the cellular recovery process.
For me, it was the physicality to one side. What was disturbing for me was that I had this inner feeling that I knew. That I was aware that something was going on, but I knew.
Why is that disturbing?
Because it feels like I'm really out of touch.
You were being
with my own
bad.
Emotions.
Oh, you were bad. You got COVID. That's exactly what we were talking about. You go through all kinds of awarenesses of the advantage of your understanding of how this all works. Esther remembers that in the beginning of her experience with us, she looked at us as guides. And she looked at negative emotion as a warning bell. And in those early days, she thought, oh, good, now I've got Abraham. Abraham can prevent me from stepping in potholes. Abraham can save me from things. And now she's come to understanding that we're not trying to save her from anything. We are just guiding her to the path of least resistance or the path of most allowance, depending upon where she is and what she's ready to hear. We're always offering the signal, but it's up to her to tune into it. And we're always offering her the signal, but it's up to her to tune into it. So there's some of that within you, but you just, the whole point of what we were talking about for all of this last segment, right before you and you, is that the greatest gift is too corny of a word, advantage that you could give to yourself is lightening up and not bragging about your enlightenment, or not bragging about your, we're not saying that that's what you're doing, but Esther was doing it some. In other words, I'm tuned in, turned on, I'm invincible. One day, Jerry and Esther were leaving San Antonio in the monster bus with towing a car, and they managed, because of their intentions and Jerry's good planning about where they were going to be at different times of the year, they never drove in the snow. They rarely saw rain. Their driving route was very comfortable. But this one day they were leaving San Antonio, and it was a deluge. It was a downpour like Esther had never seen, and Esther was driving. And she came up around this big overpass, this big curve, and on to Interstate 35 as they were headed that way. And it was raining so hard that it was difficult for most drivers to see. And Esther said to Jerry, I love this bus. It is so sure-footed. She said, I love how high up we are, because our windshield is off the roadway, and so all the splashing that the cars are doing to each other is not affecting my windshield. I have clear view. And she said to Jerry, I am invincible. And we said, you are, but everyone around you is not. So cool your jets and take it easy. And in that moment, a car hit a car, hit a car, hit a guardrail, hit a car, and these cars just kind of banged into each other and into the guardrails, and all around Jerry and Esther. Nothing touched them. Nothing touched them. So law of attraction, absolutely. Awareness, absolutely. In other words, because Esther is tuned in now, she was getting a little ahead of herself, just a little bit. But like you say, because she's tuned in, she was able to hear us when we said, so we were able to help her find the speed that would place her in the mayhem that, and your inner being always has that ability to do that for you. In other words, you'll come to trust that. In other words, you're zigging and zagging through. Sometimes you think, I would like the planet to myself, or at least a cabin to myself. I would like some space to myself so that I can hold my vibration where I want it to be. And we say, what you really want to do is get so good at holding your vibration that it doesn't matter where you are. And then you don't miss the adventure of life, and you don't stand in this boring place where there's not anything stimulating you. You get to have it all. And so that's what you're working your way to. You started this conversation wanting to talk about communication. And we are wanting to call the communication emotional. More than, in other words, Esther's not always in a place that she can hear us. A lot of our communication that Esther receives is speeding and slowing as she's moving through life experience. And so just come to trust it, and don't compare yourselves to anyone. Come to trust it. Your inner being's got you. Your inner being knows what you're doing. Your inner being knows what guidance you are more readily to hear and what guidance you might not hear. And your inner being is able to make all kinds of adjustments to help you. You're not being tested or graded or evaluated on your receptivity. You aren't bad when you have an experience that causes you for a moment to not be exactly where you think you want to be, because in the middle of that contrasting experience, you're launching rockets of desire that are going to be beneficial to you later and later and later and later and later. When we say to you, you never get it done and you cannot get it wrong, we mean it. You never get it done and you cannot get it wrong.
What was most upsetting to me, though, was the thought
we don't want to talk about what was most upsetting to you.
Okay.
There's no value whatsoever in that, because you're activating those marbles again. Did you get any clarity from what we just said? No, because you're wanting to defend where you stood and how you felt.
I'm wanting to understand.
That's fair, but understanding is, I'm wanting to understand. That's like one story, and then we'll take a segment of refreshment. Jerry and Esther again, driving. They were in a rental car. It had a navigational device in it. It was in the early days. Esther was really excited about it. She programmed it to where they were going. And they're driving. They're in Orlando. And Jerry was always the navigator, and now this contraption is going to navigate. So Jerry's got that grin on his face. And so Esther's driving along with confidence, and Jerry said, you know, we are going in exactly the opposite direction that we want to be going. And Esther said, oh, how can that be? We were over there. I programmed it. I did everything that the navigation told me to do. Jerry said, just the same. Look at your compass. We're moving in exactly the opposite direction of the way we want to go. And Esther said, okay, here's what we need to do. We need to go back to where we started. I'll program it again, and we'll watch and see where the error was made. Did I misunderstand something? Is there a flaw in the programming? Somebody should call somebody. And Jerry said, or we could just start going right now where we want to go.
I heard that.
We thought you might. This is a really good time for segment of refreshment.